going on, guys? We are back. I hate doing that because every time we do it, it's just like we do one episode, I say we're back, and we're never back. But we're actually back. Power rankings are back, most importantly. If you have not seen on the Instagram, they're back up. We got the Cardinals. If you can't see the big old picture in front of you, Cardinals are up first because they are last. But if you're seeing this video, go check us out on Instagram at BlitzPod. We're going to be talking cards today. We got a special guest with us, Lake Malkus, our resident Cardinals fan. Cardinals fan number 5 of 11. Very excited
got numbers.
for you to be with us today. How are you doing, my friend?
Good to be back. Good to be back. I'm excited to discuss 32nd out of 32 teams in the NFL. Should be fun.
Oh, yeah, it's always fun discussing the worst team with the least talent and all that. So we're just going to, if you haven't seen us on the Instagram yet, you will pretty quickly figure out our structure here. We are breaking it down as opposed to last year where we did it offense and defense and then some other stuff sprinkled in there. We're breaking it down even further. This year we're doing quarterback, then we're doing the playmakers, so running back, wide receiver, tight end, and the offensive line. Then we're breaking down the front seven, then we'll break it down the secondary, and then we'll jump into talking about some coaching stuff. We've obviously got a new coaching hire in Jonathan Gannon here with the Cards. And then we'll just talk kind of overall season stuff. You know, we'll spend some more time on different things than other things. It just kind of depends on the team. Like, for example, we'll probably talk pretty in depth about the quarterback situation here in Arizona. We'll talk pretty in depth about the coaching thing. And then we'll maybe, like, I don't know, give like a season prediction, then we'll get on out of here. These are supposed to be quicker episodes, might be a little bit longer today because I've got to do this. I have to do this big, long intro. But other than that, I mean, these aren't going to be hour-long podcast episodes. We're going to try and keep these in the 30 to 40-minute range, maybe even a little bit less than that. So to do that, we better get started. Let's jump into quarterback. Obviously, Kyler Murray is here, but we don't know when he's going to be playing for the Arizona Cardinals this year. He tore his ACL, I believe, in Week 14 of last season against the Patriots on Monday Night Football. Same backup situation in Colt McCoy. They also drafted Clayton Tune, I believe, in the 4th round. We don't know when we're going to see Kyler this year. There's been very little updates as far as he could be back by this week, and maybe we'll get that a little bit closer to training camp, preseason time, figuring out when he might be back. We also don't know what the Cardinals' intentions are. This is a team that is obviously sitting at 32 here. They're in decent need of a rebuild, of a high draft pick. They got the Houston Texans draft pick, which we'll definitely go into in a little bit. But they could afford to lose a few games this year and you get a high draft pick and reload a little bit. And Kyler Murray is obviously going to help you win games. So what are your thoughts on, first off, let me just start. How many games do you want Kyler Murray to play this year?
How many do I want him to play for the good of the team? That many. I want him to play 0 games. Usually you see players take kind of like a year to get back going after that ACL tear. So just, what are we playing for this year? Like, Vegas has us, 4.5 wins as our line? Like, oof. What are we playing for at that point? So hopefully he plays 0 games and we get the highest possible draft pick that we can. Because, when Kyler's playing, you're bound to win a couple, I guess, just out of pure quarterback play. But we'll see. There is still no clear timetable for his return. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see because we've seen guys come back from these kinds of injuries. I mean, the one that always comes to my mind when we're talking about this is Cam Akers, and I know it was an Achilles tear, but Cam Akers was back to playing. Now, he wasn't back to 100%, but he was on the field within 6 months in an Achilles tear. An Achilles tear is obviously severity varies from player to player, from injury to injury, but Achilles generally is more severe than an ACL tear, and he was back in 6 months, and Kyler's happened in early January, maybe late December. I imagine, late. Week 14 would have probably been in mid to late December last year, and I mean the season starts 9 months later. So there is a world where Kyler Murray could potentially be at least in uniform with a helmet on in week 1. Now, would he be Kyler Murray in week 1? That we don't really know. If you're Arizona and you have a $230 million commitment and, I believe, 190 of it being guaranteed, you don't really want to have 80% of Kyler Murray out there because while it's nice to see him play, You don't want him out there getting hurt, especially with all that commitment. And when you do have this incentive to maybe not be a competing team this year, you don't want to go out and win 6 games because then you're picking at 10 and you're still kind of. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
This Kyler Murray does not put you in quarterback purgatory by any means, but the rest of this roster, as we'll get to in a little bit, needs some severe boosting. And honestly, like especially with the Houston pick, there is a world. Especially if you look at Super Bowl odds, there's a world where this Cardinals team picks 1 and 2 next year in a class with Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison and like one of the best top of the draft classes in at least a few years, and they're gonna have some options that we'll get into it. I love talking about this conversation. I think we did a mock draft episode, but like before the draft, and I talked about the whole Cardinals conundrum for probably like 8 or 10 minutes, and like we're like, all right, well, are we talking about this year's draft, next year's draft? And I just jumped right into it.
It's an interesting spot.
It's going to be fun to see what they do for sure. But if it's no Kyler Murray, it's likely going to be Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy obviously doesn't offer you anything. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if we're like week 10, week 11, Cardinals are 2-9, let's say, for the sake of being kind. And they're like, okay, well, we're not bringing Kyler back at this point. Throw Clayton Tune out there. It was a 4th-round pick. I don't expect a whole lot out of him, but we've seen it with Brock Purdy this past year. Brock Purdy now has trade value. Even if, like, let's say that the Niners wanted to go back to Jimmy G, now they could trade Brock Purdy for maybe a legit asset. Definitely more than a 7th-round pick. I don't know if Clayton Tune comes and balls out, are you going to be able to get more than a 4th-round pick? Maybe we'll see. Maybe he is just a long-term backup, and you want to find out if he can be that long-term backup for you. But regardless, Colt McCoy's only got so many years left of even playing in the NFL, and you need to know if you can have a backup for a guy who is smaller, and as we've seen, is now going to be coming off an injury. Do you have any other thoughts on the quarterback situation with Kyler? Just generally, I know like we kind of covered a lot of it.
Yeah, I guarantee you we probably see a little bit of Clayton Tune just because Colt McCoy is really, really old now, and he's probably going to get injured. And like we said, a shot, right? But the same thing with like Brock Purdy. He's in that 49ers system. They got that awesome defense, tons of weapons, great O-line. We have 0 of that. Literally none. So we're kind of throwing Clayton Tune into the fire. Like, it'd be kind of like a Davis Mills situation where he's got nothing. Maybe he can make like something happen. Who knows? But let's see what he's got by week 10 or whatever, or whenever Colt McCoy gets injured.
Yeah,
it'd be cool.
And if
not much to hope for.
Yeah, yeah. And if you see on the like, obviously we're in like a big box and there's a little box in the middle, which is, I'm not making 320 or however many different graphics just to make for the YouTube video. Sorry, sue me. I don't get paid for this. So we are recycling the YouTube graphics, and if you can see on the little right side, you see where they come in. The quarterback rankings are at 12. Now this is a consensus among the 4 of us, and this was probably the toughest one that we had to rank, was this Cardinals situation, simply because we don't know how many games Kyler Murray is going to play. Because if Kyler Murray plays 0 games, this is 32, and it's an easy 32 in the league. If Kyler Murray does play, maybe we're creeping a little bit more towards top 10. I think the fact that we have them at 12, a lot of us leaned to the idea that Kyler would at least play maybe half the season or something like that. But like I said, if Kyler does come out and play even like 12 to 14 games, I think you're getting a top 10 quarterback on a week-to-week basis. But if not, this is the worst quarterback room in the league. I don't know if there's really a whole lot of argument there. I can't imagine there's not a whole lot of argument from you. So we'll move on to, I don't even know if this would be more positive, just because they're technically ranked lower, but it's less of a injury gloom conversation here with their playmakers. Yeah. And this is an okay group. It's we have them at 24th, but this would be a lot higher if we did this a few weeks ago before DeAndre Hopkins was cut. That is obviously the big blow to this team, is aside from Kyler Murray's injury, is the fact that they're losing their superstar wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins. So now everybody moves up. Greg Dortch now moves to the 3. Rondale Moore, you're going to be relying on him to be a reliable 2 for you. Hollywood's he thrived in that role early in the season without Hopkins, but now he is your solidified one without Kyler Murray, mind you. And then you got Connor as well, and the 2 tight ends, and Ertz and McBride. I really contemplated putting McBride as a starting tight end because I do think maybe even by mid-season he's got that job. What are your thoughts just on the playmakers in general?
So, yeah, I mean, it's an okay group. Obviously, Hop's a huge blow. Of course, they're all, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have seen that meme. They're all like 5'8". So, I mean, you don't really got that, like, catch point guy. We do have Michael Wilson out of, I forget where he came out of, but Stanford, I think. Yeah, Stanford. Who's 6'2", so that makes him the tallest receiver on our roster, and he was round 3 pick. So I think we see here. But yeah, I mean they're all really fast. They're all, you know, okay-ish route runners. I was more of a gadget guy, of course, and then Hollywood's, you know, he's been that number 1 if you want to call it in Baltimore. So I mean, you know, it's okay. It's an all right group. The tight ends I really like though. I don't know what's really going to happen with Ertz this year, coming off of his injury. But Trey McBride, I did like it when he was in. But, you know, obviously he wasn't going to boom because of Kyler's injuries and everything like that. But he had a few flashes of being a pretty good tight end in the league. But, yeah, weapons are okay. They are not anything special. And Hopkins is a very huge blow and a saddening one at that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like McBride too, and like I said, I wanted to put him as a starter. I had him as the breakout candidate. It did kind of suck that once not saying that he was hoping that Zach Ertz got injured, but once Zach Ertz got injured and he assumed that starting role, Kyler was already pretty much done for the season as well, so he didn't really get to form that chemistry. I am a big Michael Wilson believer. I will tell you, if you haven't done your Dynasty rookie drafts yet, go get Michael Wilson, because it's a skill set that, quite frankly, those 3 guys don't have. Like you said, they're all small, fast guys. They don't have anybody that can go up and win the ball. Michael Wilson can do that. I don't know. You know, it's a 3rd-round pick, so you'd really need to see something significant from Colt McCoy here to, you know, maybe they draft another wide receiver next year. Obviously, if they're picking at 1 and 2, Marvin Harrison Jr. could potentially be available for them, and then that becomes the one here in Arizona pretty quickly. But I like Michael Wilson a lot. If you can get him, I don't know, 3rd, 4th round of your Dynasty rookie drafts, try and pick him up, because he might, especially with them – this being kind of a throwaway year, he'll probably get more snaps than he would if they were really trying to go for it. And again, diversifying skill sets, he's a different kind of receiver than all the guys in front of him. I think that they might move Dortch back to being the backup slot, Rondale to the slot, and then Michael Wilson up to being another perimeter wide receiver, as opposed to having Rondale play outside at 5'7".
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised about that at all, honestly. Like, they just don't really complement each other. They're all just like gadget guys, and you know, Hollywood's the only like actual receiver there, but he's still got his drop issues and everything. But yeah, they just don't really complement each other. So I would not be surprised if Michael Wilson, pretty decent pickup there in Dynasty.
Michael Wilson, we are big Michael Wilson enthusiasts here between the 2 of us, and then we didn't really touch on the running game. James Conner is still here. I think if they if they drafted a 3rd round or 4th round running back, I'd probably move this team up a couple spots in the rankings. But the fact that they've got Connor there, who's had his injury problems in the past, and we even saw some regression from him last year. Like, he wasn't bad last year, but he wasn't how he was 2 years ago, and they didn't do anything to address that. Why am I blank? It's not Eno Benjamin anymore. It's literally right in front of me, but I can't see it because of Streamlabs not allowing me to read it. But
what are you looking for?
The backup running back. Why am I blanking on his name? Is it Keontae Ingram?
Oh, Corey Clement.
No way.
Hold
on. It is Keontae.
Yeah, we lost Eno and
It is Keontae Ingram. He might be further down the depth chart, but
I think he's a little bit.
Just like that whole situation, we might have to cut that out. I might leave it in. You know, you gotta take your lumps. We gotta show people that we're human on this YouTube video. That we're real people that make mistakes, and we. I got
Keontae Ingram he's 3rd on the depth chart for the backs, and then Corey Clement. is second.
Yeah. So if James Conner goes down, this is effectively the worst rushing attack in the NFL. To go along with some other worst groups in the NFL. It's rough here in Arizona, and I did want to have them higher just on the thought of like, well, if Kyler does play 12 to 13 games, they probably win 5 or 6 games, and that's not something I can say about some of the other teams that we've got coming up. But the fact of the matter is there's so much uncertainty around that, and with that uncertainty, I'd rather err on the side of caution and put them a little bit lower than they should be, and hopefully they surprise me. All right, so moving on to the offensive line, they got Paris Johnson, number 6. They traded down from 3 to 12, then back up from 12 to 6 to draft Paris Johnson, the Ohio State tackle, who I believe at least for the first year here is going to play guard, which he did play in college for, I believe, a year, maybe 2 years, just because the Cardinals already have a pair of starters at tackle in DJ Humphries and Kelvin Beachum, that they don't really want to sit down yet, and the Cardinals guard depth is a little thin. And I honestly think that's part of the reason why they took Paris Johnson, was so they knew that, okay, we have our franchise tackle for the future, but right now we can play him at guard. What are your thoughts on the Paris Johnson? Like, did you like the Paris Johnson pick? Were you a little disappointed in it?
Oh, I love the Paris Johnson pick. I mean, obviously, like, our pass protection and our run blocking has been pretty subpar, just because our interior line is so bad. It's insane. Like, I mean, we got Will Hernandez, who's like serviceable. Then we had Lectus Smith, and then like Rodney Hudson, who was like clearly checked out. Like, there was like stuff he's going to retire, everything, and just, you know. So that was always bad. So we needed that franchise guy desperately, and Paris Johnson was like the best prospect for the line in that draft. Like, I was super excited we got him, and the way we got him was really good. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, and we with the day of the draft coming up, there were starting to have rumors swirl that if the Cardinals couldn't find a trade partner to get out of 3, they would figure out a way to just pick Paris Johnson at 3 anyway, or if not move around and get him. But they thought that they were going to take Paris Johnson at 3 if they couldn't find a way to get out. I was almost certain that they'd find a way to get out, and they did. They milked that clock all the way down to, I believe, like 30 seconds, and then got down to 12. And you're not getting Paris Johnson at 12, especially with the Bears looming. I knew the Steelers were talking about trading up if he made it past like 8 or something like that. So good on them to make that move. Let's we'll wait. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about this so bad. But
okay.
All in all, Paris Johnson, I think, was a fantastic pick. I think he gives you some flexibility right now. I think he pans out to be your protector for Kyler Murray in the future, and that's ultimately what you're trying to do here. If you're trying to really build around Kyler Murray or maybe someone else next year. But Paris Johnson, he was my tackle 1. He was my offensive lineman 1. In my final mock draft, the day of the draft, I had the Steelers moving up to get him. Ultimately didn't happen because the Cardinals did it, and I'm a little upset about it, but it's fine. We love Broderick. But regardless of the Paris Johnson draft pick that both of us did like, this room still ranks at 30. Just not a whole lot to be excited about. DJ Humphries and Kelvin Beachum are just 2 serviceable starters. Will Hernandez, serviceable starter. Froholt?
I have no idea how to pronounce it.
I don't know where he came from. I'd never even heard of him until the Cardinals signed him. Call me casual, call me what you will. Now, he does come from Cleveland, and Cleveland pumps out interior offensive linemen like nothing I've ever seen. So maybe you've got something here. But for right now,
here's hoping.
I'm going to lean on the side of he's probably not that great. And like I said, this group is going to rank 30th, and there are places for optimism, but that place of optimism right now is left guard. That's pretty much it. So moving on.
It's one guy.
Yeah, moving on to the front 7. Oh, man. This group ranks last, unfortunately. This is a rough unit. It is a very rough unit, especially with the amount that has been invested. Obviously, they've lost a lot of guys in the last 2 years from this unit. Like, I put in the write-up for their just team in general that this team has been picked apart in free agency, and this unit specifically has been picked apart in free agency. They have over the last 2 years, Hassan Reddick, J.J. Watt, Zach Allen, all guys, at least Zach Allen and Reddick, were both developed in Arizona and ended up leaving in free agency. J.J. Watt comes in, but he is now retired, and now this group is just left with nothing. Up the middle, they've got nobody on the defensive line. Rashard Lawrence, Leaky Fotu. It's definitely not Leaky.
Leaky Fotu.
Yeah,
he's I think he's a.
And then Jonathan Ledbetter also. This is just. It's not a good group. I like B.J. Ojulari a lot. I had B.J. Ojulari as a first-round player. But as your edge one, brutal. Cam Thomas, also another fine player. You don't really. I think he'd be much better as a 3. And then the same thing with. Oh my God, I keep blanking on these names. I feel so bad about being.
Majai Sanders.
I couldn't remember his name.
Yeah.
I knew that was what it was. I don't know why I did that. But okay, if we're looking for sense of optimism, it is these pair of linebackers. Zaven Collins started to develop a little bit towards the end of last year in year 3, or in year 2. Now heading into year 3, started to play a little bit better. And then Kaiser White coming over from Philly was their linebacker along with T.J. Edwards last year, and that was like the only signing that they made that really felt like, okay, this is them trying to improve the team. I don't even know why you're doing that at this point. Like, I understand there's a certain level of culture that you have to uphold, but I guess Kaiser White's not impacting too many wins all around. But B.J. Ojulari was my breakout candidate. I liked him a lot. He gets to be your edge one. The only problem is he's got no help. I'm not going to say he's going to be getting double teams, but I'd say a lot of the focus is going to be on B.J. Ojulari this upcoming year because, like I said, there's nobody else that could generate pressure on this team, unfortunately. So, last ranked group, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, but God bless. If the team runs out, and like if the Cardinals play, well, they're going to play Christian McCaffrey twice. They're going to play Kenneth Walker twice. The teams with good rushing attacks are going to beat the crap out of the Cardinals. Yeah. So moving on to their secondary. Moving on to their secondary. I didn't really know who I wanted to put as the face of this graphic because Budda Baker requested a trade earlier this offseason, so I don't really know if he's going to be out of here. I think he did show up to camp, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe that.
I don't think he was participating. I think he was just there.
Just watching.
I'm not sure, though.
But he's here, right? As of right now, he's on the roster, so I figured I'd throw him up there. You've also got Isaiah Simmons now maybe finding his place at slot corner. I was like, before I looked at the depth charts, I was like, Jesus Christ, I don't know. Am I going to have to like make like a special little box for Isaiah Simmons to go in the front 7 and the secondary? But it seems like he's locked into slot corner, at least for the time being. Hopefully this defensive group can come in here and figure out a spot for him to stay at, because that has been his problem. They've been trying to move him around everywhere and they can't figure out where they want to put him. And I think that's what's stunning his development. It reminded me a lot of Minkah Fitzpatrick with Miami, was they kept moving him back from safety to corner to slot corner, and he just wanted to play safety. And that's why I can't remember. I feel like he definitely requested a trade from Miami, but it was in like week 3, and then that's when the Steelers traded for him and got a guy, I believe in year 2 or 3, who was one of the best safeties in the NFL. For a first-round pick for a safety now doesn't look great, but that was in the year where Jamal Adams got 2 first-round picks. And that's what I honestly wanted Pittsburgh to maybe take a shot on Isaiah Simmons, but it seems like he might be here for a little bit.
I guarantee you he'd be a Pro Bowler.
Oh, yeah.
Because you defenders like nobody else
in Pittsburgh. Yeah. He's just going to play the Terrell Edmonds role, but just like much better, because Terrell Edmonds does not belong in the NFL.
Stronger and taller.
But the biggest problem, now that we've covered everything, because my candidate was of the biggest problem single position was going to be corner. Is that it for you, or is it somewhere along the front 7? Is it the line?
Yeah, it would. Well, what, just position? The
just
big problem
like
is
just like that position
by far. Just straight up position.
The biggest problem spot.
It'd probably be somewhere on the line, but that's pretty boring. We already covered that. I would probably go corner then second, because Marco Wilson, was like, he was all right last year. Like, he's serviceable. He gets burnt sometimes, but I mean, he doesn't. Antonio Hamilton also just kind of okay, but there's no one there that's gonna just, be good.
Once again,
and then
it's been a theme of no sense of optimism.
Simmons is gonna be covering guys like really like half his size and just like, I don't know. He's definitely fast enough to keep up with them, but I mean, is he? Does he have the feel for that position? I mean, he did at Clemson, but we have not really seen it at the NFL level yet. Haven't really seen him cover anybody at the NFL level yet, tight ends included. Like, it's been rough. It has been rough, but I have been an advocate, and I will continue to be an advocate. And this is probably the last year I will be an advocate, because this is also his last year on his contract. So it's probably gone if he doesn't figure it out.
You being an advocate definitely has nothing to do with the college that he went to. Certainly, most certainly
no, definitely no. No.
And the biggest, I thought that one of the biggest sleeper signings of this offseason was no one was talking about Byron Murphy. Like, heading into free agency, no one seemed to.
He's
like 24, 25, and he was hitting free agency, and nobody cared. And I think he only got like $11 million a year. I couldn't believe that he got that low. I can believe that they let him go, just because. Clearly, again, heading into a rebuild here in Arizona. But this is our 30th ranked group. I'm trying to move along because I'm checking my time here, and we're approaching 30 minutes, and we've still got 3 slides to go. So, and the biggest conversation point that I want to talk about. So we're going to move on to coaching, which, once again, tell me if you've heard this one before, is our last placed group in our rankings here, our last place coaching unit. Headed by new head coach Jonathan Gannon, coming over from Philly as the defensive coordinator. Did obviously a fantastic job with their defense last year. I believe was the number 1 or number 2 defense in the NFL by the end of the season. Led them to a Super Bowl. We saw that Philadelphia staff get picked apart as Gannon is now a head coach in Arizona, and Shane Steichen, their offensive coordinator, now a head coach in Indy. But he's going to be bringing over a guy who he brought from Philly, in Nick Rallis, who is a quality control guy in Minnesota prior to being with Philly. And I don't want to sit here and be very shallow with the old pew 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 joke, but that was hilarious. It was hilarious.
That was hilarious.
And it just, as soon as I saw that and just like something about his face, I'm just like,
yeah,
it worries me.
Weird guy. Yeah.
Now I think
seen that. I think in video, probably the first thing that pops up.
Yeah, the culture I think is shifting here, because I like Austin Fort. I like what he did this past draft. I think he is a very smart guy.
That's all.
And I think Gannon can be somewhat of a culture guy in a very weird way. Obviously is a great defensive mind. But just overall, just based off the fact that it's a lot of newness, Drew Petzing also is not like a pristine offensive coordinator. He's also moving up from being like an assistant coach role to now being the offensive coordinator here. It's not like you had coordinators in place. They cleaned house pretty much as effectively from top to bottom, GM down to the coaching staff. So it's a lot of newness here. You're resetting the culture without your franchise quarterback. And I just don't know how much buy-in you're going to get from these guys in year 1 with this coaching staff, unless, like I said, unless Gannon is a crazy culture guy that I don't know about. All right, moving on to the schedule. I know.
Power of the jokes.
Yeah, he's just gonna joke it up, and he's gonna joke his way to 4 wins next year.
Awesome. Most fun locker room in the low in 17, but boy, they're having fun.
So we'll jump into this analysis real quick of just their season in general. I guess we could probably just wrap it up here. So currently the over-under for them is at 4.5 wins. Just, do you think they go over-under on that before we have a conversation about it?
Okay, if Kyler does not play, I think we go under. If Kyler does play, we probably go over. So
well, you can't have that. If you're placing a bet right now, you don't know that. What is your prediction?
Okay, I'm gonna go. I don't want to do it, but I want to go. I'm probably gonna go over and get like, what is it? 4.5 you said, or 3.5?
4.5. So they got to get to 5.
Yeah. I'll go over. Just
think you got to play the Rams twice. You got to play the Rams twice too.
I gotta like at least. Yeah, Rams suck
And
too.
I
Yeah,
think you at worst split that just because of how bad the Rams roster
yeah.
is.
Sucks too. I gotta at some point this season. I gotta be like, hey, we might win this game.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
I'm sitting here.
that's
The one thing that scares me away is they do have the 11th hardest strength of schedule. They play the NFC East this year, which is a very good division. They also play the AFC North this year, which is a very good division. They play the Steelers in Pittsburgh. Maybe you want to take a flight back. Maybe come see a little ball.
when's that at?
Week
When's that?
13, so that would probably be in like middle December, maybe finals week, but maybe we'll see.
Yeah, I'll take a break.
Yeah,
Fly to
just leave
Pittsburgh.
there in finals week, man. But just I'm gonna kind of summarize what I put here for their analysis, and it was just the craziness of the fact that 2 years ago they started the season 7-0, ultimately flamed out, resulted in a wild card appearance, but 2 years ago they started 7-0, and now we're here. They're our last place team because they got picked apart in free agency. They lost DeAndre Hopkins and their quarterback's hurt. And it's just like that quickly. That's how quickly it can turn in the NFL. You can turn from, midway through a season being the best team in the NFL to a year and a half from then you're now the worst team and you're looking next year. But we talked about it a little bit when we talked about the O-line. The Paris Johnson trade back and then trade back up, but they traded back with Houston. Houston comes up to get Will Anderson.
Yeah.
Now they have 2 first-round picks next year. One of them belongs to the Houston Texans. Now the Houston Texans, spoiler, are going to be coming up fairly soon in our power rankings. There were mock drafts done based on Super Bowl odds, because when you do these way too early mock drafts, you do them on Super Bowl odds. The Cardinals have picks 1 and 2. There's a world where they can get Marvin Harrison, and maybe they take Caleb Williams too. Now, if they're picking at 1 next year, Caleb Williams on the board. Caleb Williams was everything that we thought he'd be. It wasn't like a Spencer Rattler situation where he's supposed to be the number 1 pick and then he's benched midseason. He's everything and more. He's the consensus number 1 pick to whatever team has it. Do you want the Cardinals to take Caleb Williams, or do you want them to trade back, get assets, and ride it out with Kyler Murray?
Yeah, so I talked about this. You brought it up to me a month ago or something like that, and I was like, no. We got to keep Kyler. I like Kyler. But I've given this some thought. And if we're at 1, and we're sitting there, he's right there, I am going to take Caleb Williams and then just, trade Kyler. Because we're paying him $46 million a year. We don't know how he's going to be coming off that ACL tear if he doesn't play this season. I mean, if he shows something this, then maybe, yeah. But at the same time, like, Caleb Williams is that guy. He is insanely good at almost everything. Mechanics are a little bit shaky sometimes, but his arm power and his athleticism really kind of overshadows that. And he's a little bit taller than Kyler, so maybe we won't have to get O-linemen that are like 6'2" anymore. That'd be fun. But I think I'm definitely taking Caleb Williams.
It's going to be a very tough conversation. It's the same conversation that Chicago had this year. And while it's the same, it's a little different because we've seen Kyler Murray play at a near MVP level, lead this team to, a 7-0 start, lead this team to the playoffs. They were having this conversation with the Bears, and Justin Fields led them to a 3-14 record. He led them to the number 1 pick. It's not like Colt McCoy's coming in here getting them to the number 1 pick. And maybe there is a world in which the Texans are picking number 1 and you've got the Texans pick at number 1. But regardless of that, I honestly think that Kyler Murray coming back hurts Kyler Murray more than it helps Kyler Murray, because if he comes back and is himself, that conversation's still going to be had and they're still going to be thinking about it. If Kyler Murray comes back and it's not great and he shows some limitations, or maybe even re-aggravates the injury or re-injures himself, that decision is made so much easier for Arizona. It's like, well, we got to move him. Now, you're not going to get the same assets as if he plays well, because if he plays well, I think teams are still going to be like, but he had that injury and he's a smaller guy. But we've seen, I know we didn't have any big quarterback trades this offseason, but we saw Watson, Russell Wilson. You're probably still getting back 2 first-round picks for Kyler Murray. And that's, you might even, there's a world where you get the same package back for trading the number 1 pick versus trading Kyler Murray. And if that is the case, the decision's easy for me. And it's Caleb Williams, because Caleb Williams could walk into the NFL and maybe even be like a top 20 to 16 guy as soon as he puts a helmet on. and then just progress from there. And you've got him on the rookie deal for however long. You're freeing up so much cap by trading Kyler Murray away. Well, depending on what the contract situation is, and then you can fill this roster out with the money, and the picks. I feel like it's a really hard conversation they're going to have this upcoming season.
Yeah.
But it's going to be very interesting, and I think the Cardinals. Go ahead.
My will be taking Caleb at 1 because then we trade Kyler, we get off that contract, saves us what, another $45 million next year, and then we release D-Hop, and he had we're eating his cap this year. I think we're eating about $22 million this year, but next year I think we save about $24 million, and he's got the 5th highest cap hit in the NFL. So I mean,
and again,
take him. That's fine.
Houston's pick, Houston's pick could be number 1, but it could also be
so much money.
It could also be number 2. You
so
could pair Caleb and Marvin Harrison together for the next 5 years on rookie deals. Like there's a world where that happens, and that you feel so much better about this team now. I think Monty Ossenfort, like that moved him up in the GM power rankings. If we had a section for that, it moves him up like 15 spots. Being able to pull that off, Houston's pick. It's not like you're getting the pick of like Minnesota or something like that, where it's a middling team. The Texans could be the worst team in the NFL this year. So very exciting.
I hope they are. Sorry, Texans fans.
I mean,
any of you watching this, I am rooting for your downfall.
You gotta look out for yourself at some point, and that's what the Cardinals are doing. But that was just a ultimate haul of a deal for them to get. So just to recap here, obviously this is the first video. The Cardinals are 32nd. The offense ranked at 20th. Again, that was probably going to be our toughest ranking to make because of the fact that there's so many moving parts, and if Kyler plays versus if Kyler doesn't play, and how many games does he play to be able to rank this offense. And then the defense does rank 31st, mostly hinting at the front 7 and in the secondary.
It's so
they
sad.
don't really
it's
get
so sad to look at that.
Even with a defensive-minded head coach, they don't even get a bump for like defensive coaching for that, just because we don't know what Gannon's going to bring to this team as far as coaching goes. Like they did, like usually we use coaching as a tiebreaker in those kinds of situations, but we don't know what's going to happen there. And then we listed the championship window as 2 to 3 years away. Now, even if they go with the Caleb route and they do that, I still think it's 2 to 3 years away, because you got to play out his rookie year, and by then that's 2 years away from being maybe a championship team. But if it's Kyler, I feel like it might be prolonged now, because now you've got to really draft well over the next few years to be able to build this team around Kyler. Now the good thing is, outside of the Buda Baker deal that could be impending, you've got no contracts on this roster. Like there's nobody. I mean, Hollywood is getting paid, right? He's got a deal,
I think so, yeah.
If not, he's getting one this upcoming year.
I'm pretty sure he's up for one new deal.
And you guys might be able to get him at a value, because he's not going to have a whole lot of leg to stand on unless he balls out this year with Colt McCoy. And if he does, then you're going to overvalue him. But this is going to be I know it's like easy to say, well, if Kyler's not playing this season, it's a throwaway. But I think there's going to be a lot of questions answered this year, and most of the questions are going to be answered after this year. But I think regardless of what happens this year, unless they come out and win like 7 or 8 games, the future's bright for Arizona. Like, I think there's almost no way that we're looking at this team next year and saying, yeah, this is still the 32nd ranked team in the NFL. Just because, at worst, they're going to have 2 top 10 picks. Like, even if the Cardinals win some fluke games and Houston wins some fluke games, neither team's making the playoffs, I'll tell you that right now. So they're going to have 2 top 10 picks, and they'll be able to improve the team that way. And plus, you add back a franchise quarterback in Kyler Murray. So, Cardinals. Number 32. We're going to get on out of here. Lake, thank you so much for joining me, my friend. Do you have any final thoughts to say?
I'm excited for this year's offseason. This coming year's offseason.
One more year, baby. One more year.
One more year. Then I can start rooting for the Cardinals again.
Oh.
That'll be fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, last thoughts. One more thing. From 0 to 10, the new Cardinals jerseys. What do you give them? 0 to 10. from 1 to 10.
Like a 2.
Oh man, a 2? I didn't like them either, and it was so weird. We were literally just about to end.
They're pretty butt.
We were just about to end the podcast, and I'm about to start again. But
Yeah,
I saw I saw some Instagram like concepts of like what they were gonna do, and all of them looked like that. Like all of them were like a number and the name across the front, and that was it. And I was just like, why would they want to do that? And then they did it, and I was extremely disappointed in it because I did like the Cardinals jerseys.
Wow.
I think they did need a bit of a rebrand, but not that. I feel like it's a step backwards, and now you can't rebrand from that for the next 5 years.
Definitely.
Maybe it looks cooler when Caleb Williams is wearing it. Who knows? But
who knows? Yeah, I liked a lot of the Mexican flag designs and stuff like that. Little concepts for that. That was really cool. But I knew we were never going to do that. Yeah. So I'm, the solid red, solid white, and solid black is what we got. So, hooray!
Once again, Lake, thank you for coming on. Our next post will be up on Instagram probably tomorrow, which is Wednesday, if not Thursday, and then the YouTube video should be soon after. It'll probably be me and Kane, just because don't know a whole lot of Rams fans, and by a whole lot of I mean I know 0 of them. But yeah, next one will be up sometime this week. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, the whole YouTube outro thing. Have a good one.